Welcome to the 9th episode of WonderTalk, where I talk about my character, Javiik, a Sith Inquisitor's backstory, his story in-game, and his roleplay story. And wow, I am so hyped up right now. I just finished the 9th playthrough, and it had a bit of a slow start. I was on Dromund Kaas, kind of just exploring around the city, until we got sent directly by Lord Zash to the Unfinished Colossus, and I was so excited to have this come up in the story. I wasn't entirely sure if you got sent there for Sith Inquisitor reasons, but a directly straight path to the Colossus right after hitting Dromund Kaas was really great, because as you guys know from listening to this, Javiik was enslaved and he was sent to work on the Unfinished Colossus on Dromund Kaas, so he has a lot of ties to the area, and there's actually a ton of quests in the area. Some of them I had to kind of retcon out of his story because they were very horrible. There was one where you got to choose whether to kill slaves fast or kill them slow in suffering and agony. Oh my, BioWare, choices matter. But after the last couple of weeks, we are finally jumping right back into the roleplay story, choices, and history of Javiik, and the roleplay bug has bitten me hard, and I've been having so much fun and interest in this story again, especially because you guys post such cool, thoughtful comments. I don't end up using them all because I can only pick one story, but just thinking about them is very neat, and they're so inspiring, and they open so many lines of thought and just really cool plot lines that could exist. So thank you guys always for commenting. It's so much fun to read. So on the last episode of Wonder Talk, I asked you guys, Javik's former master, who sent him to the Sith Academy, is he alive or dead? We know that he had some kind of interest in Sith alchemy, and he used to be a former teacher at the Sith Academy, and at some point he retired. But for some reason, Javiik caught his eye while he was a slave, and he helped him get out of slavery, and eventually found out he was force sensitive and sent him to the academy. But he sometimes had some kind of ulterior motives going on. He was always kind to Javiik, he never treated him badly, but his research runs deep. So now that Javiik has returned to Dromund Kaas, I asked you guys, well, is he alive or dead? Is Javiik gonna see him? But what's going on with his life? Because he hasn't contacted Javiik at all since, but Javik's been keeping a holo diary for him. A majority of you guys voted with a yes, he is still alive, because it is far too early for him to be dead. But a lot of you mentioned he would be unavailable for some reason or another, and you guys had ideas like he was presumed dead, but he's actually alive somewhere, he was forced into hiding, or even he snuck away all by himself. You guys also had a lot of really cool and crazy ideas about he died, but his soul and his knowledge and his power got passed down in one way or another. One of the most interesting ones I saw was that it was passed down to a creature called the First that we might actually see on Dromund Kaas. Another interesting idea is that it got passed on to Javiik, and I have to be careful because of stuff that goes on later in the story. I don't really want to talk about Force ghosts, and also in general I don't want to have too many spoilers too early, so we can't involve any characters that don't exist in the story yet, and I don't want to be related to any major characters, so I don't want to be related to Darth Vader or the Emperor or anything like that in any way. Just we're making our own story here. We're forging our own path. There was, however, some cool ideas that revolved around him being dead that I really enjoyed thinking about and I wanted to share with you guys. So this one is from Lee. His master's alive, but he went mad like many other Siths during an expedition into the Dark Temple. So now Javiik sees an opportunity as in freeing his former master's mind in order to have the former master in debt with Javiik for future purposes. The lightsaber can go anywhere in the story arc, laying on the Dark Temple steps or within recovered items from rescue teams that made a run into the temple before Javik's arrival. Or so many more ideas. And I really like this idea because it is so true. So many Sith go mad in that temple that we will be visiting later, that it would not be by any means surprising that Javik's master got curious, maybe started following a thread of knowledge into the temple, went to go get it himself, and went crazy. There's a lot of dark energy in that temple, and it's just a very cool idea to think about, especially because when I was first trying to find out where and how is Javiik a slave, the temple was another one of the major ideas that came up, so it'd be a cool way to tie it in. But since he's alive, no Dark Temple, maybe someone else will go mad. Maybe Javiik, when we need a reason to switch him over to madness. And here's another one that is presumed dead, and this was from Cassandra Strife, and Cassandra's been giving all kinds of really awesome ideas. I think Javik's master might make sure that Javiik thinks he's dead. From a purely research perspective, Javik's behavior would be much more genuine and then less likely to skew any data that the master is gathering on him. It would certainly also be interesting as an additional experiment later to reveal Javiik that the master was alive and watching the entire time. That could be an absolutely unique opportunity to gather psych data as well. After all, if the master has tinkered with poor Javiik, there could be extremely subtle changes in how he reacts to certain things as the experiments progress, as Javiik adjusts to the changes made. And this is a really interesting idea because we've kind of been toying with the idea that maybe Javik's master, Lord Shallan, is kind of mentally playing with his psyche. We don't know exactly in what ways, but making him stronger in the Force, maybe stronger mental powers. We don't really know what he's been doing on the side. And there's also a really neat little quote from Assassin's Den, and they said, "I'd say whatever you choose regarding the fate of Javik's master, he ends up dying before the end of chapter 1, because that will force Javiik to succeed or fail on his own esteem, with nobody around who can possibly help him. He'll be truly a self-made man, going from slave to what he becomes in the end of the story, on his own. He will have earned everything that he possibly could have in his name." And I really like the idea of Javiik being a self-made man. He doesn't have the quite rags to riches classic story. He started off on Alderaan. He wasn't exactly poor or slave or anything to begin with. But I do like the idea of him forging his path on his own without his master, like, giving him help along the way. We even mentioned some of the previous ones. Maybe his master might even hinder him and set him challenges. So if we rule out that he's not dead, but you guys kind of have the idea that maybe he's not actually there. We've got this idea from Slow Music. Why isn't he there? Alive but presumed dead, Master faked his death so he can continue his evil activities without the Sith supervising his actions. As soon as his master hears about Javiik being on Dromund Kaas, he could approach him and try to manipulate him. And this is a really neat idea, and it was the first one that I kind of turned to when I was thinking maybe his master had to go into hiding or fake his death. What could he do that was so horrible that the Sith would turn their backs on him? And I thought, and I honestly could not think of anything that was bad enough that the Sith don't already seem to do on a regular basis. First I was like, it'd be a really cool idea. He's like experimenting on the students and using them for his Sith alchemy. But then I remembered Sith seem to do that all the time on Korriban. Remember we were on Korriban and the Overseer killed that one slave, that one acolyte just for fun. Like he was just like, kill her, dead, whatever. They're almost considered absolutely worthless if they're not strong enough to survive. With that thread, I couldn't think of anything that would be bad enough, apart from like trying to raise the Emperor from the dead, and that wasn't exactly Lord Shallan's line of interest. There was nothing I could think of, so that one kind of had to get squashed, that he did something so horrible that the Sith wanted to kill him. So we've established he's still alive, and here's an idea from Anna Sumner. Perhaps his master is still alive, but perhaps not in the best of condition, even dying or extremely corrupted by the dark side. And whatever exactly happened to him, maybe he is hurt. And maybe something happened along the way that made him that hurt, and that's why he can't help Javiik in any way. He's not only fleeing for some reason, but he's also hurt, so Javiik is totally on his own. And this is where an idea starts to popping up, and this is from Moscus. It has been mentioned that Lord Shallan avoided dealing with political infighting inherent in the Sith hierarchy as much as possible. Hence why he is called Lord Shallan as opposed to Darth Shallan, I guess. Nice guess. Nevertheless, he is bound to draw suspicion from the more competitive lords at some point or another, most likely due to the sheer paranoia of his peers. So I'm backing Slow Music's suggestion that Shallan faked his own death, but with a twist. He is hiding because another Sith Lord is trying to kill him. In fact, I'd suggest that Shallan should not even be on Dromund Kaas, but in hiding elsewhere, as he needs to continue his research into the Sith alchemy, but cannot do so on the Imperial capital world because of the attempts on his life. Since Lord Shallan taught at the Sith Academy before retiring, he might have contacts he trusts on Dromund Kaas that can bring Javiik the lightsaber. And this was like a series of 10 great suggestions. Great idea. I'm going to skip the idea that he's faked his own death, because I couldn't think of a really good way that he'd fake it. Like, there's lots of ways he could, but nothing super convincing or interesting. So I'm just going to say that yes, someone was out to get him. And that made me wonder, what could it be if we've already established that there's nothing horrible enough he could do? Well, what if he did something amazing? We know that he was studying Sith alchemy, and that his area of expertise especially was Sithspawn, which is modifying living creatures with the dark side of the Force to either enhance them or to corrupt them in one way or another. And we also know he had kind of a interest in sentient species, but we don't know how far he took that. It could have just been a passive interest, not an active one he actually pursued. And for all we know, he dug deeper into the creature side of Sithspawn. But when you're doing research, especially if you're digging into dark tomes and ancient scrolls, you might find something that you weren't exactly looking for. But once you have the knowledge, wouldn't you pursue it? Or maybe he found a powerful artifact when he was exploring on Dromund Kaas. Or maybe some powerful knowledge. If any of the other Dark Lords knew that, they might try to take it from him and he might not want to share. But Moskus was right. Lord Shallan spent a lot of time on Dromund Kaas, and he wasn't exactly a hermit. He was working at the Sith Academy. So he did make some contacts that he trusted along the way. Now, you guys had some other interesting suggestions. I mentioned that I would find Javik's lightsaber somewhere around Lord Grathan's estate. I just really like the area. No specific reason. It's kind of like a little mansion out in the middle of Dromund Kaas. It has its own storyline, but it's mostly focused on the warrior story. So we'll go there, but it's not a huge deal. But both of you guys took that Lord Grathan idea and kind of ran with it. Kenneth Kramer said, Javiik discovers that Lord Grathan destroyed his master and stole the project that he was working on to make his own son look good in front of the Dark Council. And this just in general is a great idea. It really fits in with Lord Grathan's family and what you discover in the warrior story. Not super relevant to us as an Inquisitor, but it could be neat to tie in for roleplay. And I thought it'd just be a really cool idea, maybe to try to have it be Lord Grathan be the bad guy. But then I read this other comment that had me have a new idea. This one is from MB, and MB said, I think it would be good for him to have had a rivalry with Lord Grathan because both shared the same master, with Javik's master being the favorite apprentice. Now I think that something should lead to Javik's master's disappearance. Dun dun dun. And I don't think I'm going to have them as rivals, but MB, I do really like your idea of having Lord Grathan and Lord Shallan, Javik's former master, have a tie together as being both owning the same master. And that's interesting because we know that Lord Shallan helped trigger Javik's force powers by giving him his master's lightsaber. So that would also be Lord Grathan's master's lightsaber. So I wonder where that lightsaber is if they are not rivals but friends who shared the same master. I bet you the lightsaber is hanging out on Lord Grathan's estate, and I bet you I know exactly who actually has it. So I'm not exactly sure if on the Inquisitor story, if you actually meet Lord Grathan, like I said, he's more tied into the warrior story. We'll go to his estate and we'll figure out exactly where that lightsaber is along the way. So let's tie it all together. We know Lord Shallan was tinkering with Sith alchemy, possibly on sentient species. He was already causing a little bit of trouble with his fellow teachers, and even with the Dark Council, right before he retired. But the last time he was invited to speak at the Dark Council, he said, I promise you, I could make even a slave worthy of your respect. Maybe this comment brought eyes on him and his research. What if he found something after his retirement? Not what he intended to find, but something valuable enough that sent him into hiding. And that's going to be my question for you guys this week. What do you think he found while he was researching Sith alchemy and Sithspawn that was so powerful or so dangerous that another lord might want him killed over it? And there you go. If you have an idea for that question, post in the comments below and we will talk about it next time on Wonder Talk. And maybe another time we'll find out where exactly Lord Shallan is hiding. I'll see you guys on the next episode, and may the roleplay be with you.